Now, the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Commission's annual conference will today analyze the challenges and achievements of the 18-year-old policy. It will also look at whether the legislation has truly helped reshape the economy as millions of mainly Black South Africans continue to live in poverty. To speak to us more on the issue, we're joined now by Zodwa Ntuli, who is the BBBEE Commissioner. Zodwa, it's great to talk to you this morning. I want to get to the successes and challenges of the 18-year-old policy in a moment, but what are some of the big issues for you as you reflect on 18 years?
Thank you very much. I think let's thank you for the opportunity, but I think to also indicate that the conference is taking place today, and we really look forward to constructive engagement, which we're going to take the country forward. Just in terms of our reflection, I think when we look first in terms of what the BBBEE legislation was intended to do, so the policy was aiming to ensure that South Africa, in terms of how it looks, that there is a level of equality between Black people and white people. But strictly speaking, it's really about bringing the people that were previously marginalized by apartheid laws and bring them into the economy and ensure that they participate. And the second part of these objectives is then to ensure also that apart from just participating, that they own the economy or part of the economy, but that also they manage the decision-making structures of these entities, but also that the skills development that directly targets Black people so that they can be enhanced in the critical skills that are required in the economy, and as well as ensuring that we invest in the growth and development of our small businesses and Black businesses in general for them to be able to participate. Now, what have we seen as a country? From our side as the Commission, in terms of our monitoring, we have seen that in the 5-year period that we have operated, we have registered about 528 ownership transactions. Those are transactions where the value is at 25 million and above. And if we look at the total value of those transactions as recorded, it was over 500 billion. It's around 550 billion. So what this tells us is that if we are going to be consistent and also increase these initiatives, then we are likely to see an improvement in the extent of ownership by Black people of the productive assets of this country, because that is the aim. And then secondly, what we have also seen in terms of the assessment of how we look like as a country, we receive reports from JSE-listed companies as well as all organs of state and public entities, and then we measure how they are doing in terms of transformation against the 5 elements of ownership, management control, skills development, as well as in enterprise and supply development and socio-economic development. So what we found is that overall, as Black people in South Africa account for only 31% of ownership of the productive assets and enterprises. And secondly, in terms of just the control of the decisions, on the JSE, it's only 38% of Black representation. And then when we look at the private sector in terms of the board and management and executives, we find that they are around 65%, which is a good move from the side of the public sector. But what is concerning, what we have seen, is that on the JSE, we continue to see the regress in terms of 100% Black-owned entities. In 2020, we did not record a single 100% Black-owned entity on the JSE. And again, with the recent figures of the report that we are due to release, again, we did not record a single 100% Black-owned entity. So it is important that when we look at whether we are succeeding, we look at it against what the legislation was saying it wants to do. And on enterprise and supply development and skills development, we've seen that companies in South Africa, both private and public, have been contributing significantly in recent times to these elements in terms of training, in terms of also funding Black entrepreneurs to be able to run their business successfully. What we've seen is they're spending around 60%. Yes.
Zodwa, I know you've got a lot to say, but let me come in there with a question because, I suppose what South Africans will be thinking this morning as we reflect on 18 years is we never thought that the policy was going to change things overnight, but it has been 18 years. You've already pointed out the holes where they exist. The big question now is the impact of that decision in the Constitutional Court, scrapping BBBEE compliance for SMMEs in government. What kind of impact do you reckon that's going to have?
Let me say that the decision obviously was made, and this decision was made already in 2020. The Constitutional Court just confirmed that. So the decision, in essence, was about the powers of the Minister of Finance in including a pre-qualification of BBBEE criteria in the PPPFA regulations. So it wasn't questioning whether there's legitimacy in including BBBEE as a criteria. And I'm saying that because specifically the BBBEE Act demands that the criteria be included in all preferential procurement, in all sale of state assets, in all incentives and grants that are given and that are economic grants, as well as in terms of the licensing processes, whether it's licensing in mining, fishing, or whatever. So you are required as an organ of state and a public entity to ensure that your criteria also include the BBBEE criteria. So now, the fact that a pre-qualification that was in the PPPFA has then been declared, because the regulations have been declared invalid, it does not nullify anything in regards to BBBEE, because the BBBEE Act, its application is not contingent to the existence of PPPFA regulations. So the PPPFA and the BBBEE legislation are the two legislation that have been passed in terms of Section 217 of the Constitution, and they continue to be implemented. And we want to also appeal to organs of state not to also communicate a narrative that suggests that the Constitutional Court ruling basically gives them an opportunity to disregard the advancement of black people in terms of tenders, in terms of contracts. They still have to include that criteria because the legislation demands so. Yeah. So yes, it will be of concern, especially for black people, because they have been excluded. And even with the opportunities that are presented by BBBEE, they continue to experience challenges because they cannot have sustainable supplies or even sustainable contracts. They have like ad hoc type of supplies that do not really help meaningfully. And they rely heavily on government procurement to be able to sustain themselves because the private sector has got a whole lot of other challenges in itself.
For the sake of our viewers who are watching this morning, Zodwa, as the Commission, for companies that are parading as compliant to broad-based black economic empowerment, what kind of sanction might they face?
All right, I'm going to speak first about what is it that should be happening. In terms of the legislation, they are the organs of state and public entities who are contracting on a daily basis with the companies. Where a company has been found to be misrepresenting its BBBEE status, like it has happened previously with some of the companies like Trillian, Tegeta, and Optimum, who submitted false BEE credentials to ESCOM for particular contracts. The legislation allows that when that is found to have happened, the organs of state must terminate that particular contract. And so that is going to also help in terms of having consequence for people that blatantly violate the legislation in terms of fronting or misrepresenting their status. Secondly, the legislation allows for once an investigation has been conducted, the Commission must refer those matters where it finds that there's fronting or misrepresentation. They must refer them to the SAPS or the NPA, as the case may be, for those to be taken further criminally. And when they are taken further and criminally, upon conviction, what is likely to happen is that the entity would have a fine imposed of up to 10% of its turnover, of its annual turnover, and then also the directors responsible for that conduct may face imprisonment of up to 10 years. But I think, as we're saying that, we do want to see more and more of administrative penalties that can actually give immediate sanction, and so that we can actually have real consequence for people that do not want to contribute meaningfully to the transformation and undermine legislation. Yes.
Zodwa Ntuli, let me thank you for your time this morning. The BBBEE Commissioner, and of course the Commission's annual conference takes place today. They'll be analysing the challenges and of course the achievements of the 18-year-old policy. Zodwa, thanks very much indeed.